Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of Math with Dr. War. Today we're going to look at standard Q2C. Now this is the last standard where you cannot use a calculator. So we've ran through all of those problems where you cannot use a calculator. This is the last one. And in Q2C, you have to be able to perform computations and numerical expressions with cubes and cube roots of rational numbers. One cube means that 1 is going to multiply itself 3 times. The 1 is your base and the 3 is the exponent, and it's telling you how many times the base will multiply itself. And if 1 multiplies itself 3 times, your answer is 1. Now, 2 to the third, or 2 cubed, is the same thing. The 2 is going to multiply itself 3 times, which gives you 8. Then we have 3 cubed is 27. 4 cubed, 64, 5 cubed, 125, and 6 cubed, 216. On the GED exam, they say that students should memorize the cubes all the way to 6. You only need to go to 6, that's it. Because remember, you cannot use a calculator. Now, they can ask you to find cubes of negative numbers. So suppose I say, find the cube of negative 3. This means that negative 3 is going to multiply itself 3 times. 2 negatives, let's change my color. Right here, 2 negatives gives you a positive, and then when this positive multiplies with this negative, your answer is negative. So if you have an odd number, and 3 is an odd number, if you have an odd number of negatives, your answer would be negative. And then when you multiply 3 times 3 times 3, you get 27. Now here's something else you must be aware of. So if you cube negative 3, you get negative 27. If you cube negative 5, which is negative 5 times negative 5 times negative 5, you're going to get negative 125. Because again, let's put the cube there, you are cubing, and cube is an odd number of negatives. Now, if I just place negative 5 to the third power, remember when we did this with the squares? The negative 5 to the third power, the only thing that you're cubing is the 5. So you need to keep the negative, and then the 5 is going to multiply itself 5 times. But how many negatives do you have? When you look at the 5s, there's only 1. And 1 is an odd number, which means that your answer would be negative, because negative 5 times positive 5 would give you negative 25. And then negative 25 times a positive 5 gives you negative 125. So no matter with the cubes, if you have it in parentheses or there is no parentheses, if there's negatives, your answer is still negative. But remember, with squares, it's a little bit different, okay? Because squares are even numbers. Cubes are odd numbers. Now, if you memorize your cubes, then when they ask you for the cube root, they're going to mostly ask you for the cube roots of perfect cubes. So if I know 1 cube is 1, then the cube root of 1 is 1. If I know 2 to the third power is 8, if I take the cube root of 8, I should get 2, because the cube root is the inverse of cubing, which is like the opposite. 3 to the third power is 27. Now, if I take the cube root, I should get 3. So if I want the cube root of 64, I'll ask myself, okay, what number would multiply itself 3 times? 3 times to give me 64, and that's 4. So when you're finding the cube root, it's similar to finding the square root, cube root jail. So in order for someone to break out, you have to have 3 of the same numbers. When it was a square root, you worked in pairs. When it's a cube root, you work in threes. So you have to have 3 of the same number in order to break out of prison. The cube root of 64 is 4. Now, all I can tell you is that for the cube roots, basically if you memorize, you should be okay. So look at this question. What is equal to the cube root of 27? So you're asking yourself, okay, what number multiplies itself 3 times to give you 27? And remember, your test is multiple choice. Well, not all of it, some of it is. And your answer would be B, which is 3. If you memorize, you're okay. You can look at the answers to help you. What is the cube root of 216? Like, what number would multiply itself 3 times to give you 216? Your answer is 6. Now, the last one I have here, you're doing computation. So I have the cube root of 9, which has to multiply the cube root of 81. So I see the 9 there, and I go look at the 81, and I'm like, okay, I know that 81 is 9 times 9. And then I have the cube root here of 9. Now, instead of having 2 cube roots, why not have 1 cube root? And then I have 9 times 9 times 9. So notice I have 3 of the same number, which means my answer is 9. So my answer is C. Cube roots, finding the cube roots is similar to square roots. Just memorize the first 6. You should be okay. Notice that the computation wasn't that difficult. But again, they're similar to square roots. It's just that instead of a square, you now have a cube. If you found this lesson helpful, please give a thumbs up. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe. If you know someone who's taking their TAS exam and needs help, please share the channel. And as always, good luck on your GED exam.